Hi, and welcome to NT181 this term. Recently, this course was updated to cover the latest Windows Server operating system, Server 2019. There is a even newer version of the operating system that is in the works, but for now, 2019 is pretty much the latest that you'll find in any production environment. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at this term. A couple of things I want to point out. When you first log into the course, you're going to come to the home page. The first section is a brief course description, and here you'll see a link to my information, and that includes my online office hour each week, and so be sure to check that out. Next thing I'll point out here is your learning resources. These are your two primary reading resources for this term. So just about every reading assignment comes from one of these two sources. So keep in mind that here you have quick and easy links to access those. And then down at the bottom you'll see a link to the full syllabus for the course. Next thing I want to point out is the announcement section. Be sure to check this over. As of right now, there's just a couple of announcements there. I'll be adding this a link to this video at once it's done. I'll be adding that, and so just be sure to check all those out. Here are the different modules for the course. This is just an introductory module, but then next we get into Unit 1. And what you'll want to do each week is click to start at the beginning of the module and just read and work your way through slide by slide. Notice here this screen, this page here has a couple of links for you. It has a link to the Microsoft Azure Dev Tools, which will give you access to, free access to Windows operating systems, and you'll be using those throughout the course. So you might want to bookmark this in your web browser or something. Next, this is a link to the Herzing University Technology Programs for VMware. This is where you'll go to download VMware Workstation. So you want to make sure that you make a note of this URL as well. The next page here gets into NetLab. NetLab is the lab environment that you're going to be using to complete your labs this term. So be sure to watch this video and read through this information excuse me, so that you understand what you're going to be doing with NetLab. Next, it gets into virtualization technology, and mentions here that you'll be using VMware Workstation Pro, and you'll be doing that for the projects. So keep that in mind. Here's a video that you'll need to watch. And then next, some information on software, specific software. Here's where it mentions again VMware Workstation Pro. Be sure to watch this video. Then the Azure Dev Tools, which I mentioned earlier, give you access to different Windows operating systems, and so definitely read through this and watch these videos. And then there are a couple attachments here that can provide you some additional information on using NetLab. Okay, so a lot of important information there at the beginning of Unit 1, and then now this slide begins to get into the actual one of the actual first topics of the week, which is Windows client operating systems. So this is typical of what you'll have in future topics. This is generally where the where the modules or slides will start out at. They'll start out at an introduction and kind of tell you what you're going to be doing for the week. Notice there's a reading assignment here, and it mentions the textbook, which again, remember, there's a link to back on the home page. Some interactive material here, and some more information. And as you go throughout you're learning for the week. You'll just keep reading through this and accessing any of the materials and resources, and just progress through the slides to cover all of the topics that are covered in the modules for that unit. So here's Unit 1. You'll see what all it goes through. You're going to be looking at Windows client systems, which use the client operating system. You're going to look at Windows client types, installation types rather, user accounts, Windows 10 configuration, and you're going to get an introduction to Hyper-V on a Windows client, as well as some PowerShell. And then the last part of this gets into your assignments, your Unit 1 discussion, which of course your initial post is due on Wednesday each week, and then your assignment and your project. And that's what I want to take a look at next. You'll notice that each week you have a lab assignment, and then you have a project assignment. And same thing in Unit 2 and Unit 3, and as you go throughout the course, you'll find that to be the case every week. Again, your labs will be completed in NetLab. Your projects will be done on your own computer using VMware Workstation. Keep in mind that you do need a Windows computer in order to do that. There is no installation for VMware Workstation Pro for a Mac. So if you have a Mac, you need to find yourself a Windows computer, because anyway, you got to remember that a Windows computer is required for any of our degree programs. So you've got to make sure you have that. This is one of the classes that you cannot get by with a Mac on. So as you see, again, that's each week there's the lab and the project. Here are your weekly discussions, and that's it as far as assignments. That's your content, for the course. I'm going to take a quick look at one of the projects here, and just looking at the instructions, and you'll notice that here in week 1, it gives you some basic information. Gives you these URLs again that we looked at previously back in Module 1, and all that you're doing here is downloading and installing VMware Workstation Pro 16. You'll watch these videos, then you'll download and install VMware Workstation Pro 16 on your computer, and once you're done, you'll get a screenshot showing that it's installed, and that's it for the first project. So again, all the projects you'll be doing on your computer, and all the labs you'll be doing in the NetLab environment. And speaking of NetLab, at this point I'm going to move on to give you just a brief introduction to that. Okay, so the URL for Herzing NetLabs is netlab.herzing.edu. You'll use the information that was provided for you in the Unit 1 module as far as what your default username and password should be. Of course, if you have used NetLab before in a course here at Herzing, then you should already know your credentials, and the default credentials won't be valid anymore. Your username will still be the same, but your password will have been changed. So once you log into to NetLab, first of all, keep in mind mine's going to look just a little different than yours because I'm an instructor. But essentially, each week you're going to want to come in here and you're going to want to schedule a lab, for your lab assignment each week. So you'll come in. You won't have all these courses listed. You might have one or two, but you'll come down to the NT181 course, click on it. Notice there are 2 different lab environments here. Your assignment each week will tell you which one you need to go into. Most of your assignments are going to be in the Windows Server 2019 labs. I'm going to click on that. Here we have 2 different labs. we have a Windows Client Operating System lab and a Windows Server 2019 lab. So again, you want to pay close attention to your lab assignment instructions and make sure that you're going into the correct one. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to go into the Windows Client Operating Systems lab. And so here's the calendar. I can click on whatever day I want to, as long as there's a pod available. I can then click on the time and schedule the lab. So I'm going to schedule one for right now so that I can go in immediately and show you what things are going to look like. So once your lab period becomes available, so if I had scheduled this lab for tomorrow, this enter lab button would not be here, but since I scheduled it for right now, it's here. Now if I'd scheduled it for tomorrow at noon, then tomorrow at noon this button would become available and I'd be able to click and go into the lab. Okay, so here's the lab environment for the Windows Client Operating System. Notice we have a client system. We have server DC1 and server SA1, and so we can access these by clicking on the drop down, and once the systems have fully booted up, we can then click on Send Control Alt Delete and log in, and typically you're going to be logging in with administrator credentials. So again, we're still waiting on this system to fully come up, and there we are. So now I can send the Control Alt Delete, type in the password, which is always going to be password 01 with a capital P. And at this point it's going to log me onto that system. And so now I'm sitting at the desktop of the client machine, and we can go into system and take a look at information and see that we are actually dealing with a client operating system here. So Windows 10 Education version 20H2. So if I needed to get out of this machine and go back to a different one, I can do a couple different things. I can click on the topology and come back here, or I can just click on one of these tabs and go straight to the machine that I need. That's about it for NetLab. The last thing that I want to touch base on, I want to take a look at one of your lab assignments and show you what that's all about. You'll have two documents in the lab assignments each week. The first document will be your instructions. The second document will be the document that you'll use to paste your screenshots in. So I'm going to take a look at the first document here. You'll notice that you're given some instructions, some kind of generic basic instructions for each, that apply to all the labs. Then as you scroll through, you're going to get into the different steps that are required. First, here you're going to be required to log on to the Windows 10 machine, which I just demonstrated for you in NetLab, and then you'll go through and complete the steps and get the documentation that's required. Anytime that you're required to get a screenshot, you're going to see instructions highlighted in yellow that say get a screenshot of, and then whatever it is you're supposed to get. Below that, you'll see an example of the screenshot that you're supposed to get. Your screenshot should look pretty much identical to this one. The only difference is going to be that your pod and your reservation information is going to be different. You need to make sure that your pod and your reservation information are viewable in all of your screenshots. This is basically a way of proving that this is unique and that you have not copied someone else's screenshot or whatever the case may be. I need to be able to see your pod number and your reservation number, and then that again will prove to me that you are submitting your own work. So make sure those are visible. And then again, make sure that your screenshot looks exactly like the screenshot provided. If your screenshot is considerably different from the example provided, you will likely not get credit for it. So again, make sure you're using these examples. So we scroll through. Here's another screenshot you've got to get. Here's an example of what it should look like. Another screenshot, example of what it should look like, and so on. So you're just going to progress through the lab, get the required screenshots, and make sure that the pod and reservation number are visible and that your screenshot looks like the example provided. And again, here's the document that you're going to paste your screenshots into. And this is all clearly labeled for you. So all you have to do is just come in here and paste your screenshots in the right location. And then this is the document. Once you have all your screenshots done and pasted in here, this is the document that you'll submit for your lab assignment for that week. Okay, I think that's about it. That pretty much covers all the basics that you need to know to get going in the course. If you run into any questions throughout the term, please don't hesitate to reach out.